What's up guys, and welcome back to another video. So in today's video, Bitcoin is dumping. The altcoin market is bleeding, and suddenly your timeline and feed is flooded with one name, Jeffrey Epstein. The latest batch of Epstein files just dropped and people are losing their minds, claiming Epstein created Bitcoin, that he was somehow Satoshi Nakamoto, and that the entire crypto ecosystem is some kind of elite pedo operation ring. Of course, this is absolutely crazy, but I get it. If you're seeing headlines like this, your stomach drops, your wallet probably drops as well, and you start to question everything. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what's in those files and what the real connections are, what's being blown completely out of proportion, and of course, why. Just like the Binance FUD before previously, this too shall pass. Stay to the end because I'm going to give you the full picture that nobody else is putting together. Now, before we do in fact get into today's video, guys, as always, I want to say I am not a financial advisor and I'm not giving financial advice. This is purely educational content. If you do want to get a financial advisor, please do so in your country. And if you're in the UK, USA, or UAE, please do not watch or engage with my content respectfully. So let's get on with the video. So here's what actually is happening. Millions of documents from the Epstein files were released, and yes, Bitcoin and crypto names appear in some of them. Let me break you down the key findings of what was actually in these Epstein files in different categories, and then later we're going to get onto exploring about how somehow Jeffrey Epstein could be Satoshi Nakamoto. So first of all, Blockstream. There's an email chain from 2014 showing that Jeffrey Epstein invested in Blockstream's seed round. His allocation went from $50,000 at the start all the way up to $500,000, of course funneled through Joy's investment company. Adam Back, the CEO of Blockstream, was CC'd into these emails, and there's also flight arrangements showing a trip to St. Thomas near Epstein's Island. Of course, there were also flight arrangements basically with Adam Back as well. Also, Adam Back has acknowledged the funding publicly on X and stated that the money was returned. Second, it gets more interesting as we go along. Zcash, you know, the very, very popular privacy coin Zcash. The files show that Zcash co-founder Madars was actually sending Epstein detailed tax documents and discussed coin custody strategies directly with him. Epstein was being treated as an insider confidant to the Zcash operation. Extremely interesting. Third, MIT and Bitcoin Core. Between 2002 and 2017, Epstein basically funneled over $850,000 to MIT. Basically, in 2015, when the Bitcoin Foundation went bankrupt, they were actually saved by Epstein. So there's then an email saying, "You used gift funds to underwrite this, which allowed us to move quickly and win this round. Thank you." Fourth, Coinbase, a name we all know and love, or used to love, but they're a big player in the space. Emails from 2015 and 2018 show Brock Pierce forwarding Coinbase shareholder updates directly to Epstein and his accountant. There's discussion of structuring secondary share purchases through Epstein's private vehicle with 25% carry. It's unclear whether Brian Armstrong or Fred Ersham even knew their newsletters were landing in Epstein's inbox. Fifth, Michael Saylor. Now, this is a name we all know and potentially love if you're a Bitcoin maxi in crypto now. Yes, he does appear in the Epstein files, but there is in fact a twist. It's an email between Epstein's publicist, Peggy Siegel, basically complaining that Saylor is completely unusable. She says he has absolutely no ego, no vanity, no social instincts, and no obvious fear. She literally didn't know how she could potentially blackmail him. His social awkwardness, Michael Saylor's social awkwardness, literally saved him. This was in 2010 as well, before he was even into Bitcoin. Now, here's where it starts to get really important, because the biggest FUD right now is basically saying that Epstein was in fact Satoshi Nakamoto. There's a screenshot going viral from 2016 where an email Epstein writes, "I've spoken to some of the founders of Bitcoin who were very excited. People are treating this as literal proof that he in fact created Bitcoin. Let's use our brains for just a second, guys. Come on. The words founders is almost certainly referring to early developers, that he was not one of them. Epstein was a networker. He name dropped and exaggerated connections consistently. That was his entire playbook. There's a real nail in the coffin here, though, however. In 2011, Epstein's assistant reached out to Gavin Anderson, one of the early Bitcoin developers, trying to arrange a meeting at Harvard. Gavin's response? No. Sorry, I'm busy. Sent from iPhone. That is the end of the conversation. If Epstein were Satoshi, why would he need his assistant to formally introduce him to Gavin, someone who Satoshi was already in direct contact with? Satoshi had just handed the project to Gavin 2 months earlier, emailing him, "I've moved on to other things, in good hands with Gavin and everyone." It makes zero sense for Satoshi to suddenly pretend to be a stranger requesting a meeting through a publicist. And think about it. Why would a man obsessed over privacy and confidentiality create an open, public, transparent ledger? Probably they wouldn't, right? Epstein's emails have all stern confidentiality notices. His entire operation was about secrecy. Bitcoin is the opposite of that. As Simon Dixon put perfectly in 2011, Epstein was trying to figure out who he is in Bitcoin. He was curious, probably wondering if he could use it for his crimes and how to start compromising with the people involved. That's 2 years after Bitcoin launched. The evidence clearly shows he was an outsider looking in, not the architect. Now, let's talk about why Bitcoin is really falling, because it's not the Epstein files. Arthur Hay laid out it clearly. There's been roughly a $300 billion fall in liquidity over the past few weeks, driven mostly by $200 billion rise in the Treasury General Account, the TGA. The government is raising cash balances to fund spending in case of a shutdown. When liquidity gets sucked out of a market, liquidity-sensitive assets like Bitcoin get hit the biggest. On top of that, we've got a partial US government shutdown. Democrats are blocking the funding bill, which means agencies, including the DHS and ICE, aren't getting funded. This creates macro uncertainty, which then spooks markets. And of course, riskier assets like Bitcoin get hit first. We also saw the first US bank failure of 2026, Chicago's Metropolitan Capital Bank and Trust, signaling a broader liquidity crunch in the market as well. And yes, there is a stablecoin yield battle. A new ad campaign went live urging senators to side with banks over consumers. Brian Armstrong has literally been called the enemy number one on Wall Street for trying to give yield on money to consumers. The regulatory uncertainty is adding pressure across the entire crypto market. Bitcoin is now on its fourth straight red month, the first time this happened since 2018. The price is below the average ETF entry cost basis, and we're sitting at strategy's cost basis for the first time since 2023. These are real macro and liquidity factors driving the price down, not Epstein conspiracy theories. Here's what you need to understand. We've seen this exact movie and script play out before. Remember the Binance FUD, CZ gets arrested, everyone says Binance is done, crypto is all over, it's a scam. What happened? Of course, the market recovered. A lot like what's happening now with CZ and Binance as well. Of course, we all know in that case, the case played out that CZ did in fact get pardoned. Binance is still the biggest crypto exchange in the world. The people who panic sold lost millions in that rally probably. Before it was Bitcoin manipulation. The paper markets are suppressing the price. Turns out people were just selling. That narrative, in fact, died. Now it's the Epstein files. Bitcoin was created by a pedophile. Sell everything. That's what happens. New scary narratives emerge. Retail panics, sell the bottom, and then the market goes ahead and recovers. The only thing that drives market liquidity is the estimated $10 trillion of liquidity which needs to be printed. When that flows back into the system, Bitcoin will move just like it always does. Of course, we all know nothing fundamental has changed about Bitcoin, and you can still send it anywhere on Earth at any time to anyone. The code is open source. Every transaction is publicly verifiable. Bitcoin has survived Mt. Gox, block size wars, China bans, FTX, what else have we got? Celsius, the SEC. It will survive the Epstein files as well, I'm sure of it. As one of the people in the space said it best, Bitcoin makes its major moves in about every 10 days a year. If you're out of the market because of FUD, you're going to miss out on those days and you will regret it. So guys, to wrap it all up in today's video, yes, Jeffrey Epstein tried to get his tentacles into Bitcoin early and crypto companies. Of course he did. He invested in Blockstream and has connections to MIT's digital currency incentive. And yes, he was receiving information, insider information from Zcash. He was doing what he always did, networking, funding, and trying to gain influence. But did he create Bitcoin? In my opinion, absolutely categorically not. Don't let fear-led narratives shake you out of your position. Be strong. Do not have paper hands. I really do appreciate you watching this video, guys. And again, this is not financial advice. It's just an educational video. Of course, if you're in the UK, USA, or UAE, please do not watch or engage with my videos. And if you do like this content, subscribe down below. Drop a comment about it. It's a very interesting topic. And like today's video. And I'll catch you in the next one.